Hey everyone, this is Jonah Johnson with you for another edition of JJ in the Field.
Hey guys, Jonah Johnson, Sales Agronomist with PCT Sunrise. Today my co-host is Bryan Reeb, our Research Agronomist, and today we're north of Uniopolis, Ohio, and we're talking today about water hemp. So if you remember at winter meetings we talked a lot about this. Water hemp is, like its name, water. These small black sticky seeds can move with water bodies, move into fields. Bird traffic can deposit those, as well as moving with equipment and tillage tools. So it can be, obviously, if you haven't been up to date on water hemp, it's quite a pernicious weed and has a lot of herbicide tolerances and resistances already in it as this plant has evolved over the last 4 or 5 years. So if we look at this weed, this is water hemp. If you note the leaves first off, and this is a more mature plant, first caveat to this plant is there'll be no hairs along the stem, or very minimal hairs. On the petioles, no hairs. If we had a red root pigweed, for example, or if we had smooth pigweed, they have hairs on them, and that's a key separator between water hemp and Palmer Amaranth from those other pigweed cousins. The other thing to note is notice these leaf structure. They call this a lanceolate leaf structure. Note how it's elongated and narrow. As this plant gets taller, these leaves will be more definitive that way. As they get mature also, they get this dark green, and they'll get a nice glossy color. When they're younger, hence like some of these guys here, they're lighter in color, but note all these leaves on there still have very elongated leaves. And so Palmer Amaranth, for example, this structure here between my fingers is called the petiole. It connects the leaf to the main trunk of the stem. This will be very long on a Palmer plant, somewhere to the length that you'd be able to take the leaf, bend it back on the petiole, and not touch the main part of the stem. So you can note, typically in this upper area, shorter petioles, lanceolated leaves, and you get this dark glossy green color later in the season. So again, key points to remember: we have no hairs, shorter petioles, this elongated leaves. Palmer Amaranth has more of a lobe shaped leaves, and I'll insert some pictures for you guys to see. Also, when they're younger in the cotyledonary stage, they'll have a very definitive look as well, and I have some pictures I'll insert for your reference there as well. So, Bryan, why don't you walk us through some herbicide options?
Hi guys, Bryan Reeb here. Jonah's already covered some of the ID characteristics of water hemp, and now we're going to go through some herbicide options in the various trait platforms. First, we're going to start with the Enlist E3 platform. In that situation, the 2,4-D choline is a very efficacious herbicide, and here we're going to try to target the 2 to 4 inch water hemps ideally. You can notice the ones in front of me. This would be the ideal height where we would like to target the post herbicide application. I understand that is very small, but these can grow extremely quick, and if we miss the application by a few days or a week, they can go from 2 to 4 inches to 4 to 6 and so on very quickly. We would like to layer in a group 15 residual herbicide with that application to extend our season control until we get some canopy closure with the rows. If we're in the Enlist platform still and we want to use the Liberty or glufosinate option, that's a very good option and very efficacious. There we would need to make sure that we have the proper AMS load. We would like to see AMS true at 3 gallons, and that gets the proper amount of ammonium sulfate to activate and make the glufosinate product work properly. If we're in the Extend platform, first we want to note the date. We have June 30th as our cutoff date, where we cannot apply that product afterwards. So if we can still apply it, again, 2 to 4 inch weeds will be ideal, and layering in the group 15 residual herbicide in that program as well. Now, if we're in the situation where we cannot apply either 2,4-D or the Extend products, and we need to go to a more non-GMO situation, we would like to look at the PPO herbicides, Reflex, Cobra, Flexstar, products like that. Those products will require the use of an oil, crop oil, or Zephyr Prime preferably, to get those herbicides to work properly. But those herbicides, while they're effective, they're not the most effective option, so we would want to come back probably in 14 or 21 days to make sure we didn't have any misses, and maybe make another or a second application to finish cleaning that field up. And please note your row spacings, 15s or 30s, where we can get some canopy closure to help protect our soil and extend our residual control for the rest of the season.
Okay guys, so hopefully you learned a little bit about some water hemp identification and control measures. Bryan did a great job of summarizing your measures. This weed is pernicious and very serious. If you see it on your farms, go after it. Get control measures in place quickly, because if we have herbicide resistance built up on our farms, this weed can get out of control very quickly. Once it goes to seed, it can produce up to 1 million seeds. And if you think about, even if 25% of those lived, because they're not always a very long-lasting seed in the ground, you still have an exponential amount of seed in the ground. So take-home measures, safe identification, hairless. We have that lanceolated long leaf. Also, we have very fast growing. And if you see those out in one area of the field, they can spread very quickly. It's a summer annual. It's going to be emerging from mid-June, probably through the end of July. So that being said, check your fields now for this, because once we get to the fall time, when we see these penetrate the canopy of the soybeans, a lot of times guys will mistake these as the leaves start to drop tissue as looking like giant ragweed carcasses left in the field. So again, get out there and scout your fields. If you have more questions, feel free to reach out to me or Bryan or your local ASA. And with that, this is Jonah Johnson with PCT Sunrise. Thanks for watching.